All right, it's 6:30.
Okay.
All right, good morning and welcome to another Friday morning safety meeting. We're only a week away from being done with August and into September, which is just pretty crazy. So today's code item of the week is strive for restraint, discretion, and integrity. I know this is one of my favorite ones, and I know it's Mr. Dow's favorite one or one of his. So what do you got for us today, Ben?
Yeah, we talked about it last week um, because it was related to your topic, but it's just about self accountability. It's one of our biggest strengths, I think, in our culture as employees here at ECI, because when we build very complicated work, we always think about it and plan it out first. So the self discipline of thinking about what we say and do before we say or do it is an important way for us to be self accountable and also to be successful in the intent of what we really want to make happen. So maybe just a little bit different way of saying it, but it's very powerful when you give a pause instead of reacting because everyone's expecting that response. But a lot of times it disarms the other people involved and makes them think, huh, what's he thinking about? It kind of gets the intellect triggered in your brain. So
Sounds good. Thank you, Ben.
I'd like to share something on being on restraint. I One time it was like probably 10 years ago, we got a call for an emergency water break on something like New Year's Eve or Christmas Eve or something like that. And I started making the calls to dispatch people out. And then I got the call back from the client, oh, we found somebody else or notice back. And I'm like, and I felt like unloading on them. Instead, I kind of waited, paused for a little while, for a few minutes, thought about it. And when I called back, I'm like, well, I can appreciate your decision, but we respectfully ask that you just pay our guys to, for their initiative to go out because we disrupted their holiday weekend.
yeah,
And the client says, I can't argue with that. If I
yeah,
had been pushing
right.
hard at them in a disrespectful way,
Yep,
the answer would have been the opposite, right?
yep, yep, yep. They just would have made a decision about you.
Right, yeah. So
Yep,
that just goes to show you that
it pays
often
off.
that pausing and kind of resetting yourself and your mood and your stress level can make you very successful in those kind of situations.
Yeah,
So go ahead, Tom.
cool.
Appreciate it. All right, safety news today. 19 days without a recordable injury, 1 day without a first aid injury, 1 day without a vehicle incident. School's back in session on Monday, so make sure you're respecting buses and the rules of the road surrounding them and not running too fast or over the speed limit in school zones. And those flashing signs are going to mean something once again. Wear a vest in the yard in the mornings. It's starting to be a little dark. Like I said, a little crazy that we're almost to September. So just make sure you're wearing vests so people can see you as they're driving around. And this week, we just want to thank all of our summer employees who have headed back to school. I'm sure most of them aren't on the meeting today, but just wanted to say thank you to them for spending their summer with us.
Yeah, and I think I meant to put in the announcements to be careful because school buses are on the road next week, and I forgot to put it in there. So let's make sure everybody keeps that in mind because it will be different out there with traffic, with probably more people moving at that time of morning and school buses.
Yep. Oh, what's the fine print down here? It says the ECI golf team at the AGC tournament shot -11. So I don't know how that snuck on there, but the standard's been set now. So
Huh. I wouldn't have noticed it.
all right. So today we're going to talk about confined spaces. All right. So why we're here, from 2011 to 2018, 1,030 workers in the U.S. died from occupational injuries involved in a confined space. That could be anything from overexertion to toxic fumes and stuff like that. Most of these were preventable, would have been prevented through gas monitoring and or air monitoring and a retrieval system in place. The fatalities are increasing year over year within confined spaces, and confined space rescues are incredibly complicated. There's only a few fire departments in the state that can undertake a rescue inside of a confined space, so it's not crazy to say you could be waiting well over an hour if you're outside of Chittenden County for a rescue team that can handle the situation. Preventing incidents is the best means of dealing with them, and always having a retrieval system where one may be needed is imperative if there is a problem. Would-be rescuers are often killed, so coworkers and stuff like that, trying to rescue somebody else because there is a dangerous atmosphere or whatever else may be down there, and they succumb to that as well. Nobody's Superman out there, so unless you're bringing your own atmosphere with you, the atmosphere that you're going into matters a lot.
Mhm.
So what is a confined space? A confined space is any space that meets all of the following criteria: limited openings for entry and exit, not intended for continuous human occupancy, large enough to enter and conduct work with your whole body. And the rules are black and white, but in real life, the application can get a little bit gray, and we need to make that determination at some point. And I chose this picture because it's the tank up at DFA in St. Albans. And recently, another contractor in Vermont got fined really heavily by VOSHA for a tank. And when does this suddenly become a tank? Is it now that it's closed off? Where in the tank are they working? Are they just working on top? There's a lot of factors at play. So we need to make sure that if we're in doubt, that we're classifying it as a confined space before it could pose a, especially this is when it's gray, that we're classifying it as a confined space before it could pose a hazard to an employee or before VOSHA decides that it's a confined space. So sometimes it's kind of walking a tightrope between is it not, but we just need to be smart about it, put our brains together, and come up with a plan so we can do our work safely. So what to do when a confined space is encountered? This is the easiest part right here, is identify that it is potentially a confined space, which we just talked about. If you're in doubt at all, just give us a call. We can figure it out. It might be, it might not be. We can talk it through. And then contact Matt or myself. And it's as simple as that. Once that happens, to get the ball rolling, we'll come up with a plan for you. And calling us well in advance will prevent delays to work. The complexity of the plan will vary. As you can see up top, we have where Charlie was going into a old culvert down at Global Foundries this winter, and we had to have multiple pages of what we were going to do and all that sort of stuff and a crazy plan. And then down below, we have something a little simpler where it was more just an air metering situation in Morristown, where we just had to keep an eye on the atmosphere and make sure that Calvin down there, as he put all those rocks in, all that stone in, was safe. So it could be as simple as us leaving a gas meter with a crew and showing them how to do a permit and being like, hey, this is what you want to look for. This is what you're looking for on the gas meter. And this is how you do the permit. Or it could be something as complicated as everybody and their brother chipping in to make something happen. So deadlines and scheduling, that sort of stuff are never an excuse. The atmosphere inside of a confined space doesn't care that you have to be somewhere else next week, and it definitely doesn't care. And VOSHA definitely doesn't care either. So permitting, this was a slide that was 20 minutes, and I had to scrub it and go back to simple. So a permit must be submitted on Teams in order to enter a confined space, and initial 4 gas meter readings are necessary to properly complete the process. I put down at the bottom, I have no obligations until 11, so I don't want to go down the rabbit hole, but there's permit required and non-permit required confined spaces. There's a whole bunch of things that contribute to that, and we will deal with that when we make the plan with you once you make contact with us. So we just cut 19 minutes out. So we have different roles. So the entrance, the person who enters the confined space, and you'll run into this as you do permitting. I know there are a couple crews out there that are going to be doing some permitting on their own the next few weeks, so this is important for them. So the entrant is the person who enters the confined space. The attendant is the person who directly monitors the entrant. The emergency responders, those are the ones that are on site and will render aid in case of emergency. And the entry supervisor is the person responsible for the above people and has ultimate authority pertaining to the entry. The entry supervisor may act as the attendant in some situations, and really any role involved here. So it's important though that somebody's always on the outside and never send in more people than you have on the outside, because that could be a real problem. So air monitoring is typically performed with what's called a four-gas meter. It measures oxygen, carbon monoxide, hydrogen sulfide in the lower explosive limit of the atmosphere. Volatile organic compounds, or VOCs, can be monitored with a photoionizing detector. And some gases may mimic others on these meters, so you always have to be cautious of that. Air monitoring is a useful tool even when you're not dealing with a confined space. So if you're, on a site where you have a ton of stuff moving, sometimes if guys are starting to feel dizzy or weird stuff's happening, air monitoring can be good. We were into that outside of a confined space this week where there was some welding going on. We wanted to make sure before we gave a guy a PAPR that the atmosphere had plenty of oxygen, which it did. So oxygen's the most important in terms of confined spaces, as most deaths in a confined space are due to a lack of oxygen. Safe range for oxygen is 19.5 to 23.5%. But as I say here, it's not really that simple. So the normal is 20.9%, and with some of our meters, it's 20.8%. If it's high, just exit. It's usually a calibration issue. It could also be a mimic or gas. If there's no source of oxygen nearby, it's probably not anything above 20.9%. If it falls below normal at all, this is where people get into trouble sometimes. It could be another gas replacing it, and you have to have a lot of parts per million in order to equal even 0.1% of the atmosphere. So you could have a whole lot of toxic gas that's pushing out that you can't monitor for, and that's why it's dropping. Oh, like I said, it's one of those things where you just don't know what it is. So pulling out and then contacting us if we're not there, and we can work through it with you. So that's why I said, even though if the oxygen's 20.5%, it might still not be, that can sustain life, but whatever else is in the atmosphere might not. Iron oxidation is common cause of the O2, the oxygen deficiency in the atmosphere. So if you have old steel pipe in the ground and it decays for a while, it'll suck the oxygen right out in an airtight situation. Like I said, it's the most common cause of death. Hydrogen sulfide sewer gas and must be below 10 parts per million. Carbon monoxide is tasteless and odorless. We all have carbon monoxide detectors in our home, I hope. And it's one of those things, sometimes it's paired with another odor, like the smell of exhaust, but in it of itself, it does not have an odor or taste or anything like that. And that's your blood likes to carry carbon monoxide a lot more than it likes to carry oxygen. So it'll edge out the oxygen, and next thing you know, you're feeling dizzy, headaches, and then it can lead to death eventually. We must be below 35 parts per million. The best way to do this is generally we create the carbon monoxide that's in the structure. So keep equipment away. The small engines are, I think, the worst. The other day we had a reading of 90 parts per million just from a plate tamp running nearby. So then you have your lower explosive limit. That's your LEL. It must be below 10%. And at 100% LEL, you have 5% concentration of methane in the air. Different gases have different lower explosive limits, so we really need to stick to the 10% or less, just because it's going to be calibrated to methane, and you could be dealing with a different flammable vapor. So, and then volatile organic compounds, you use PIDs for this, and it's going to give you a number for how many parts per million you have in the air of volatile organic compounds. So that's like your paint lacquers, stuff like that. But unless you know exactly what you're dealing with, it's basically a yes or a no. And if something's off, you get headache, nausea, dizziness, or anything else that's strange, get out. If there's strange color, or if there's strange odor, get out. Something just doesn't seem right, get out. Because you can always make reentry, but a pause and reevaluation is always worth your life. And like I said, once you identify that something is a confined space, even if we're the ones that put it in, just give us a call and we will come up with a plan to make sure that we can get through it efficiently.
About skipping back to the first slide, going kind of reviewing again the definition of a confined space.
Yep. So it's any space that meets all of these criteria. Limited openings for entry and exit, not intended for continuous human occupancy, and large enough for you to enter and conduct work with your entire body.
Okay. And be careful because not every confined spaces are obvious typical one, like you're saying that happened to one of our competitors who got nailed by OSHA. It was probably due to a lot more than that case, and nobody got injured, I don't believe, right? It was just a,
Oh,
I forget, it was a complaint that they heard. Okay, well, I'm going to take over the screen.
Nice job, Tom.
thanks. I know we had to get in the weeds a little bit on that one, but we have some guys that need the air
That's a
monitoring stuff for
complicated
next
one.
week. So
It is. Yeah.
it was half
Okay.
my job before. So
Oh, yeah. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes.
All right, confined space. So we have a pretty cool announcement here. ECI profit sharing for 2023 fiscal year. We do this after the closing of the year. That's why it's just happening now. The close of our fiscal year is the end of the calendar year, like most, but not for everybody. Let's see. The ECI recently contributed a total of $250,000 to the ECI 401k profit sharing plan. So as of August 5th, 2024, ECI employees will have a profit sharing allocation to their 401k accounts. The allocation turns out to be, because we had an even dollar amount, a kind of a weird percent of 1.91% of each employee's 2023 wages. So pretty cool. Anything to add on that, Ben Dow?
Yeah, it's cool because it went in pre-tax, and which is kind of cool. So you get the full amount, and it should be reflected in your 401k balance. So if you have any questions about you're getting into your 401k account, talk to Gina. I can help you. But there is an app, and there's a couple of different ways to get in and look. Some people, I've realized lately that some people don't look at it unless they get something in the mail or once a year. But there's an app that you can get, and you'll be able to see that recent deposit that was made. It's really cool, and it's on
Yep.
top of whatever else went in there this year. It's on top of your own contributions that you put in, and on top of the 3% that the company actually already put in last year as that safe harbor contribution. So Ken, that puts the company up to almost 5% of what they
5%.
contributed to 401ks last year, which is
Right.
cool.
Yep.
So
Yep.
thank you for doing that, and thank you to your brother
Yep.
too. Thank to both of you.
Yep. Hey, you're welcome. Next item we have is mulch hay. So now that's being stored up at the Bushy Pit, for those who don't know, and please return excess bales to that location. Scott Burns, do you have any comments on this? If you're out there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep.
We hear you.
Yeah, yeah. So the mulch hay, for those of you who don't know, is that Bushy Pit now. And when you get done with it, if you got a trailer and you got 15 to 20 bales left on it, do not leave it in the backyard in the rain or throw it off out by the tents. Return it to the Bushy Pit, please. And then the only other comment I had was for Ken Pigeon was good job on the restraint there for the during the holidays. I've never been very good. Ben Dow's been trying to teach me that for years, but I've never been very good at that part. But
It shows that it pays off, that I mean, bringing in a calm reason point to somebody after you've kind of, been through that, just like, wow, that was so simple to get an answer that was favorable to what we wanted.
So my high point's never been restraint.
Yeah.
So going back, that's true.
Yeah,
Going back to the hay. I don't know if you're putting it inside or not, but if you get a bunch of hay and it's soaking wet, then you don't want to put it inside. I don't know how they're storing it up there, but you want
it's in trailers up there. Obviously, if you're out on a job and you get pouring rain, the mulch hay, just take it up to the Bushy Pit and we'll just throw it in a hole. It's no good.
Yeah, don't put it inside, because anybody that's been on a farm knows what happens when you put wet hay.
Yep.
and stack it up. You could end up with a fire.
Yeah, it's just we've been having problems with people coming in, unloading
Yep.
it out back, throwing it on the ground, and it's
Yep.
not the place for it. Take it
Yep.
back to where you got it.
Yep. Okay. All right. Okay, thanks, Scott. And
Yep.
then we have an announcement on Morgan Stanley. The financial advisors will be here at ECI on Friday the 6th. So that's pretty consistent. If you haven't noticed, it's like the first Friday or something of the month, obviously, in this case. And there's half-hour meetings available from 8 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. for employees to discuss their 401k account. Now they have a little more money in it again, they might want to do that. And it's always good to meet with these people periodically, just to make sure you've got the right combination of different funds, because it depends on how old you are and where you are in your life and all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So, and this week you have to check with Veronica. Melanie will be out next week, so coordinate with Veronica.
And they can help you get into your account if anyone who wants to get in
Yes.
that doesn't know how, they can help set you up.
So also, please join our social media, which this is an older announcement I've kept on there. So we have Facebook and Instagram links there. We don't have any new employees this week, huh, Ben?
Not this week, but next week we've got 3 that are coming in.
Making up for it. Okay.
Yeah.
And we have a link to our ECI primary care wellness program, the summary sheet. So please check that out. If you're not part of the program, please kind of consider that. I think it has a lot of value. And also, if you are a participant, check to see if it's time for you to get your yearly physical, which is part of your requirement to be in the program. And this week we're talking about the Bingham Brook, horse farm and riding arena. This is the phase 2 concrete construction in Charlotte. And ECI is contracted with Advanced Equine Construction of Corbin, Kentucky and we're contracted for the concrete foundation construction of a new horse barn and riding arena. And Advanced Equine is a specialty horse barn contractor that has been, according to their website, building exceptional equestrian facilities since 1979. And I thought that if anyone was looking to build an exceptional equestrian facility, you'd be hiring a contractor from all the way from Kentucky, I guess, a bluegrass state. Yeah. So ECI worked on phase 1 back in the summer of 2022. And while phase 1 is still not complete, the owners decided to start phase 2. The 206 linear foot long by 106 wide rigid steel frame arena and west stable wing was part of phase 1. The east stable wing, a mirror image to the west stable wing, is being constructed in phase 2, and that includes 720 linear feet of footings with walls for a total of 250 cubic yards of concrete and 12,720 pounds of reinforcing steel. The phase 2 footings and walls are complete, and we still have the slabs and interior grade beams to place and finish. ECI is currently on site core drilling all of the sleeve penetrations through the foundation walls. And there were quite a few of them, or something like 40 of them, or some crazy number. So there's the phase 1 in the background as we are, it looks like they're cleaning out the pump as part of the footing construction. You can't quite see the footings. You see the bars. Look, we got caps on all those bars like we talked about a couple weeks ago. So what's interesting here is that it's been 2 years, pretty much 2 years to the month now when we were out there in a previous presentation. So it's been over 2 years since phase 1 was started, and it still has the zip board on it. And looks like the standing seam roof is only partly complete. It's like, I'm kind of surprised here, but
yeah.
The owner is off and running on phase 2. There's some of the footings we just put in. Somebody else doing the site work in the background there. It's kind of a complicated structure for a barn. and it's I think Chittenden or is Charlotte in Chittenden County or that famous Addison County with the heavy soils
Hmm.
on the border anyway.
Yeah.
Is her own, and can't tell who that is from the back. And then here they are. Here's the guys later, proudly displaying their work. Beautiful spot for a horse barn. You can see it all open with fields and lots of sunshine there. Again, they're barely getting through this project, which is surprising. Looks like standing seam roof from here. It may just be a steel raised ridge, but I can't really tell. And there's the guys pouring. It's like we're using Carrera. And another view of the wall work. Carrera's pumper. Yeah, it's only like there's a big opening there in that wall that the building completed building without a window or anything is awful big for a window. Can't imagine that. That seems strange, doesn't it?
Yeah.
A window that large, or maybe it's an opening of some kind, but
The garage doors.
up that high?
Huh.
They can open them.
Can't be, right?
Oh, they're using garage doors for windows.
Oh, so they can open it up and let the air flow through?
Yeah.
So it looks like me if that's Carrera's concrete truck that they have rear discharge concrete trucks now. I hadn't noticed.
Huh.
There's another picture from the front of the building, the old first phase one. Here's some of the inside, like exposed stud walls. These are all stalls in there that would be somewhat enclosed, except that not like this one. That one on the right is obviously a man door, but the stalls would be through here. The arena is in the back. It looks like, see, there's a window there. That's probably what we were looking at. The window just wasn't installed. It was, a large window, great for natural light in their arena, for the riding arena. There's grade beams that'll be done in the center. This is the phase one again. It's just like what we'll do on the phase two on the mirror image. So there's grade beams to support the posts, all post and beam construction. I was there last year or 2 years ago. I mean, when we were working on it. It's not a mortise and tenon construction though. It's all the big timber screws for fasteners. So that's what we got for that project.
Wow.
Pretty cool project though. And for the photo archive, I had the Charlotte commuter rail station back in February 2001. And didn't figure out who the guy is in the red, white, and blue jacket.
No.
But that's Alan and Scott standing below. So
Yep.
there, we did the Charlotte commuter rail station. The entire project is a GC, including the timber frame construction on that. That was a timber frame from Vermont Frames down in Starksboro.
Yep.
So, all right, that's what I got. I'll turn it back to the safety department. Everyone have a safe day out there.
Yeah, have a safe day. Have a great weekend. If you watch in a group setting, if you could send us your attendance, that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Remember, next week there's probably going to be school buses on the road.
Yeah.
Okay, see you guys.